So I wish to say hello to you all. I am Amarial, that's the name of my divine presence, and I am known on planet Earth as Dr. Liliana Corredor. I have spent a lapse of about period of about 20 years from 1970 and completed in 1990 a lot of degrees. And I'm saying this not to show off, but to let you know that I know when I know about water. I started with a degree in biology and chemistry that was compulsory to be able to go on to do sort of a master's degree in marine biology. I specialized in coral reefs and behavior, and ecology of coral reefs and animal behavior. And then I went to France, where I did maîtrise of general oceanography. And then I did the first year of the doctorate of, it's called the DEA of biological oceanography. And I was miserable in France. People dream of France to me. It was like, no, Paris, get me out of here fast. The 4 years in Paris was more than enough for me. And from Paris, I migrated to Australia, which was I knew since I was 9 years old that I would live in Australia. And because it has the Great Barrier Reef, of course. And because it had the Aboriginal people, to whom I had a deep connection since I was very young, not knowing why, until I got here. Anyway, so that's in general terms. So I specialized in water. So you could say that I am very proficient in subjects that have to do with water. I did my doctorate on freshwater organisms, on the behavior of some huge prawns, this big, with very long arms, like these big blue ones, which are a multi-billion-dollar aquaculture industry subjects. So anyway, I did all these studies, and then at the end of my doctoral thesis, towards the end, in 1987, I started meditating after I read the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda that put me in a new course in my life while I was still doing my doctorate. And then towards the end of my doctoral thesis, I found out that I discovered a lot of lies. In the research done, I brought down basically in my discussion and the conclusions of my thesis, I brought down 10 years of research done by university in Tel Aviv, I think. It was the person that started this research on the same prawns that I was studying did some very funny things and reported erroneous, false results. So a pizza tower started being built for 10 years. Research around the world on this and any other thing similar, totally twisted. So I brought it down. That was my first whistleblowing. I didn't know I was whistleblowing. I didn't even know the word. Then as I was completing and I gave my thesis to my supervisors, one of my supervisors, I had two supervisors, Dr. Kim Ing, said to me, Liliana, you better go to the library and check the latest studies that have been done, published this year. And he said, I've got a bad feeling. I said, me too. So I went to the library, and what did I find? Ooh, surprise, surprise. The University of Miami, the Resmas School of Applied Science and Atmospheric, I don't know what, they did this study exactly on my thesis, exactly on my hypothesis, and they proved, according to them in 1 year, took me 5 years, that my original hypothesis that the 90% of the prawns remained inhibited in growth to this size while 10% grew this big. Why was this? So my departing hypothesis was that it was chemical communication, similar to what bees do, in which the queen bee inhibits the growth of the other workers. So that's what I set out to prove, whether it was chemical, whether it was visual, behavioral? What was it that was inhibiting the growth, which was a huge loss for the aquaculture industry? You cannot cultivate prawns and pretend to make millions of dollars on them if most of them remain small. The idea was to get the big fatso ones. And so I found I was very distressed, and I ran to my supervisor and I said, "Oh my God, did I just lose 5 years of my life? Because they're saying that it is chemical communication." He said to me, "Go through it with a fine comb and find the fault in it, because that yours 5 years of research and statistical analysis shows that it is, you cannot really determine chemical communication because it's too difficult to organize, to work out in water, which is full of water, of other molecules." And you found that it was mostly a visual impact of the biggies on the rest of the population, of the bullies on the rest of the population, that inhibited the growth. So I went back to the research paper, and I went through it with a fine comb. And indeed, what did I find? They were lying from the teeth. They were using 1 football field of water per day to pass through the filters to grow the prawns. They were, anyway, a lot of lies. And then they changed. There was 2 graphs, one graph A and one graph B. The graph A was for visual communication. The other one was for chemical communication. They just swapped the titles. A became B and B became A. Poof, ready, and they published. And so I brought, in my discussions and conclusions, I brought down 1, 10 years of research by the Israelis, and 2, the research by the University of Miami researchers. What happened with that? As a result of that, what happened was that I was dismayed. I was furious. I was disgusted, in rejection, criticism, judgment, condemnation, etc. All my soul wounds fully activated. Not all, but a lot of them. So I decided at that time, this is absolutely unacceptable. I started studying science to discover the truth. And this was full of lies. This went exactly against everything that I was set out to do. So I said to myself, and I said out loud to the universe, I refuse to be part of this Ku Klux Klan of liars and academics and corrupt scientists. I refuse to be a part of this club. I'm out. But you just finished your PhD after 20 years. Well, tough. I cannot be a party to this. I cannot. So I'll find another ways of doing things. Because my love, my passion is water. My earth mission is the protection of waters. That is what I embodied in this planet, in this life cycle, to do. So I am talking to you because I love water. And I'm going to talk to you about soul wounds, about the discord, our own individual discord and humanity's collective discord. What does fear have to do with water? Pretty much everything. And this is what I will be talking to you about. So let's go back a little bit to myself. Then I decided to use my science to make the public aware of what was being discovered out there about water and what was important for communities and schools and fishermen to do to protect their own supply of food and water for themselves, for the children and future generations. So I started using my 20 years worth of 5 diplomas to campaign, to do environmental education campaigns. I went everywhere. I went through a lot of countries, went backpacking with my daughter, with her little backpack trailing behind me. I went to many, many, many places. I spoke or sign language or drew designs to explain to people, you do not cut the trees on the sides of the creeks or the rivers. And you do not chop the mangroves in the estuaries and in the ocean. You leave them alone. You need them. You do not poop in the creeks and the rivers. You try not to use chemicals for your agriculture, learn to do permaculture, organic agriculture, etc. And I was very focused on sewage. The queen of the poop, they call me, after 1 year campaigning in Byron Bay in Australia about closing down sewage treatment plants, about supervising and managing those, I call them the skeptic systems, meaning the septic systems. Yeah. Anything that polluted my waters was just something I would be looking at and campaigning about. So I did that for many years. Then after we came back, after 1 year of traveling all over Southeast Asia with my daughter and talking to everybody, I came back to Australia and I left my daughter with her father, from whom I was divorced since she was 1 year old. And I said to him, you'll send her to me. I'm going off. There's this 10,000 people from around the world are getting together in Kakadu National Park in the Northern Territory, Northern Australia, because the government has decided it wants to build 33 new uranium mines in Aboriginal sacred land and in Aboriginal land. The Australian government pushed the Aboriginals away and away and away and away and away, and they corner them in the north and northeast of Australia, where they thought they could get rid of them, hide them from the rest of the white population, and let them do whatever they had to do. But oh, surprise, surprise, they found that the hugest deposits of uranium lied right there where they had pushed those Aboriginal people to hide them. Now they wanted the uranium. All the international corporations wanted the uranium. So the Australian government was out to get that uranium. So 10,000 people decided to drop in and create the biggest environmental campaign that has ever been held to prevent those 33 new uranium mines from happening. So I left my daughter with her father and I said, I'm off to Kakadu. I'm going to join the people there. Because when it rains in the Northern Territory, there's like 15 meters of water. And when they process the uranium mines that they already have there, they leave them in open pits. Open pits. The yellow cake and the ultra radiation that emanates from the leftovers of the processing of uranium, they leave it there in an open pit, in open air. Then it rains 15 meters of water. Guess what happens? It overflows and all that radiation and all that pollution goes where? To the creeks, straight into the ocean. So yes, so it was part of my Earth mission to complain about it and bring attention to it mostly, because I don't, as an environmental activist, I didn't only complain. I pointed out using scientific data, often provided by the same governments that were creating the problem, saying, this is what you're doing, but this is what you could do instead. I never just hugged trees and was, oh, bad you. No. This is the scientific evidence of the harm that you're doing to our water systems. And this is what you can do to save yourselves a lot of economic problems in the future. Because I always went for the pocket. It's only when you talk about money and the money they're going to lose that they pay attention to you. So I always went for that one, the pockets. And how is it that you're going to benefit, and et cetera, and how it would be for the highest good of all. They didn't give a damn about the highest good of all, but they didn't mind their economical profits. So off I went. I left my daughter and I started driving. It's a long drive from Byron Bay on the way to Darwin. It took over 2,000 kilometers. So I was driving. I had been up and down that road several times when I traveled around Australia for 2.5 years. And in between studies, after I moved to Australia. And so I knew I had been around this area for 16 years before, and I was shocked. I was absolutely horrified to see the amount of development that had ensued. And the damage, all the literal coral reefs were dead. Was nothing. Not even algae over it. They were absolutely dead. I was dismayed. and very saddened, very saddened. And so I kept on driving, going, shaking my head all the time, going, oh my God, what are they doing? What are they doing? Because coastal management is non-existent. There's coastal development with very little coastal management. None of the agencies are actually do their job properly. They're not interested. The interests of real estate agents, of corporations, of the pharmaceuticals that create all the pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, and all the sides go first before any environmental concern whatsoever. So I was driving, and then I arrived to the junction. I was arriving to the junction. This is called the Bruce Highway. It goes from south to north along the east coast of Australia. And then I was arriving to the junction with a road that goes to Tennant Creek, and from Tennant Creek it goes up to Darwin. And I was going up to Darwin because the Kakadu National Park is next to Darwin. So I was nearing this junction, and I was nearly getting there when I heard a voice, a very loud voice inside my head that resonated and made me shake, vibrated in my head so loud. And the voice said, "Beloved, please keep driving." I nearly had an attack, and I went, the what? I parked my car and I went, what the hell? I never asked, who are you? Would you believe it? Here, this is the scientist. Zero, never asked. I just went, why? I am going to Darwin, to Kakadu National Park, to save my waters from all that uranium. And he said, beloved, there's over 10,000 people already there and more coming. They can do that bit. We urgently require your assistance on this side, on this end. Please keep on driving and head towards Cape Tribulation. And I lived in Cape Tribulation for 3 months. We camped there for 3 months when I had recently arrived to Australia, and we were hippies there for 3 months. And I knew the area, and I loved the area. It's just magnificent. And I went, okay. I just said, okay. Hello. I didn't ask why. Nothing. Why? I know I did ask why. And the voice said, you'll find out. And I said, oh, great. Here it is, the queen of doubt and distrust, because this has been one of my deepest wounds, have been doubt and distrust. And here's the queen of doubt and distrust. And, okay, if you say so. This is just to tell you that the power and the love and the wisdom that I was feeling through that vibration and frequency of that voice was so intense that it was not negotiable. No arguing, not negotiable. Well, it is negotiable in the sense that he asked, would you please assist us? And I said, yes. So he was not breaching any universal laws of non-interference. I said, okay. Okay means yes. So then off I went, nothing. The voice didn't say anything. And I said, can we go to Cairns then? And I called my husband to ship my daughter to Cairns so that I can then move on with, yeah, you do that. So that's what I did. And I got my shanty in Cairns, and we took off. I had all my camping gear in the back and my box full of documents, big box full of documents. That's all I carried, camping gear and my big box of documents. So off we went. And then as we were going through the Daintree is the oldest region in northeastern Far North Queensland that has the last remnant of the original forest from the time of the dinosaurs. And they have kept on cutting it down and down and down and downsizing it until there's only a little rectangle there that's left. Well, it was left. They keep on chopping it. So anyway, as I was crossing, I just started noticing that I didn't recognize the place. I had lived there for 16 years ago in all that area, and I couldn't recognize it for the life of me. I was going there, what happened? There were banana farms, cattle stations, tea plantations, all sorts of things. And there were marinas and more boats everywhere and development everywhere. And I was going like, what the hell? One of the most exquisite wild areas of Australia, and a very important one because it's in that area that the Great Barrier Reef is the closest to the continent. The Great Barrier Reef is outside of the continent of Australia, about 80 miles at its closest, and then it does like this, and it comes very close at that level in Far North Queensland to the coast, which means that it is more impacted by whatever happens in the coast. So I couldn't recognize anything, and then I went, oh my God, this is just shocking, this is terrible. And then, so keep driving. So I kept driving, and then I heard the voice again, woke up and said, beloved, in 100 meters, could you please park your car on the side of the road? On the left, you will see a building that says the Bat House Environment Center. I said, the who? And Shanti said, what, mommy? And I said, look for the Bat House. And then Shanti says, there it is, mommy, there it is, the Bat House is there. So we parked. I dutifully got off, and I said, what am I doing here? He said, you'll find out. And as we reached the door, I see this huge sign on the door that says, well, everybody is in Kakadu. They are planning on destroying this whole area. Douglas Shire Council just is about to pass some urban development plans for the area during the Christmas period that nobody's watching, and the rest are in Kakadu. And they plan to do a 4-lane highway, create a bridge over the Daintree River, do a 400 marina development over here, and just development all over and destroy all the rainforest. And the reefs were pretty much dead by then. But it would impact enormously on the Great Barrier Reef. And then as I saw that, I went, oh my God, that's why you brought me here. And the voice said, could you please go inside and ask for Hugh such and such? I forgot his surname. I said, okay. So I went in, and there was one older man with white hair sitting there on his own. And when he heard the bell of the door go cling, cling, he looked up and he said, hi, how can I help you? And I said, I am looking for Hugh such and such. He said, I am Hugh such and such. How can I help you? So I went inside and I went, how can he help me? Why am I here for? And he said, the voice, which was a masculine voice, I forgot to say. The voice said, ask him about this development. And so I asked him about what's with this development. So he told me all about it. We were both horrified. And he said, and who are you? And I said, I'm a nobody. And I said, well, I was an environmental activist, but I decided I was giving up. He said, no, you can't. Please, we need you. You're a godsend. I've been praying. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in God, because I had been praying for divine intervention to send us somebody to please help us. I'm on my own. Every environmental activist around here in North Queensland has left. They're all in Kakadu. And we need to do something, or else this area will be totally destroyed and the last remnant of rainforest in the Daintree will be goners. And he said, please, please help us. And I said, I came here to camp. And he said, well, look, I'll tell you what. If you help us, I'll give you a cabin for $10 a week rent. I'll give you telephone, computer, faxes, pay for your emails and tour everything. And my wife is a wonderful cook. And we will feed you. And I went, let me think about it. Please tell me, since I do not recognize the place, where is the nearest camping site? I need to go and really think about this. So he said, it's 2 kilometers out that way, go to your right, you'll find it. So off we went with Shanti. We set up our big tent with its big tarpaulin. It's a thing of blue material in plastic to prevent it the rain coming through. We hanged our 2 hammocks, my Colombian hammock and my Indonesian ikat hammock for Shanti, a smaller one. We put all our cooking gear and organized everything. And then it started raining. So not a problem. We were on to Harry Potter, took out the Harry Potter books. We both lied on our hammocks and watched the rain go down. We were nice and dry under our tarp, and we were happily reading. And then the rain wouldn't let down, would it? I call it a sabotage by Gaia and the family of light. So after 3 days, and when it rains in Far North Queensland, it's not little rain. Like every drop is this big man. And there's just water everywhere, and the water was starting to come into our tent because the water level was rising in every direction. And so it was clear that we had to pack up our muddy, wet gear and head for the boathouse. So because there was so much rain, we packed our gear where we were camping, and we took off to ask for asylum at the bathhouse at the Environment Center. And so I got there, and they showed us the cabin. They were lovely little cabins. And I said, why do you have so many cabins for? He said, we're an international research center. People come from all over the world. Researchers from all over the world come here to do studies on different things. Some work on coral reefs, some work on forests, some work on whatever it is that they work on in tropical studies. And I said, And so it was a very comfortable cabin. It had a main room, and it had an area with a double bed, and there were little beds, single beds for my daughter. There was a desk, and he knew that I was coming back. He had already put the computer there and all sorts of goodies, and they had put a bowl full of fruits for us, and it was a lovely little cabin. And I said, okay, deal, I'll stay. And he went, yay, and he said, could your daughter, and what's her name, Shanti, could Shanti please come with me and I'll introduce her to my wife? My wife is studying the bats. This is why it's called the bat house. And Shanti could help her. Shanti was all for it. Yay! She took off. And then I was left alone, and I said to the boys, okay, so what am I here for? Mind telling me? Where do I start? What do I do? And then the voice said, beloved, go to the office and ask Hugh to please find you a study done by the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, GABRUMPA in short, and many other agencies that have to, environmental agencies, Australian ones. They published a study 10 years ago, and he was a key party to it because they lodged right here. And he took them around, and he helped organize a lot of the data collecting and that. So off I went to the office, and I said, hey, Hugh, could you please find me that study that you did 10 years ago with Gabrumpa and all those blah, blah. He looked at me and he said, what? How do you know about that study? I had totally forgotten about it. It was 10 years ago. And I said, never mind, don't ask. Can you find me the study? And he said, oh my God, I have no idea where it is. You know how many papers I've got here and how many articles from everybody that comes around here? Come, I'm going to show you a cabin that is just dedicated to paperwork. He took me in there, and there was piles of papers and articles everywhere just spread throughout the cabin, filling it up. And I went, this is your library? He said, pretty much. And I went, then I said to the voice, help, where is it? And the voice told me, tell him to look in this corner, in the second batch of paperwork, about 30 centimeters from the floor. There's a red, sort of a red plastic thing for documents. On top of it is the study. So I told him. So you went and lifted that thing, got to the red thing, and then there was the study, and he says, what the hell? How did you know it was there? And I said, don't ask. Hugh, I'm going to ask you something. Do not ask. What I'm doing, not even I understand. So let's just leave it at that, okay? Bye. So I took my study with me and went into my cabin come office. And then the voice told me, beloved, open page 3. Switch on your computer, please. I said, okay. Well, first he said, would you like to help us? And I said, absolutely. What do I have to do? Tell me what to do. He said, okay. So he said, open page 3, paragraphs 2. So I open, I look. He said, now copy and paste that paragraph. So I copied, paste that paragraph. And on he went. Go to page such, copy, paste. Go to page such, paragraph such, copy, paste. Okay, so I did it. This went on for months. But at the beginning, then he said, go to the literature cited, to the bibliography, and ask one by one these studies. Call the agency. There's the name of the agency that published it. Call them. Tell them that you are a scientist, that you're Dr. Liliana Corredor. Here's where you used your doctor, beloved. And that you're doing research in this international research center. Could you please send me these documents? And you're going to do that with every agency for documents, blah, 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 blah. And he gave me all the numbers. So every day I would go and I would call the agency and ask them for a paper and another paper. But he gave it to me in batches so that I could process the papers as they arrived to me. And indeed, the papers were sent and they arrived to me. And all the time Hugh was going, what? And I said, don't ask. I will let you know when I know. So then, as the papers arrived, the voice again would say, beloved, open page 83 and copy paragraph 4. So I would go, copy and paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Exactly what page, what paragraph to copy of which document was given to me throughout 3 months. And after a month, I said, can I read it? He said, not yet, beloved, because your mind will interfere. We would rather you do as you have been saying, which has been a divine service, and you will get the picture when we're done. Well, after a month, I had gotten pretty much the picture. And I said to the voice, hey, this is like putting the finger in a hornet's nest. Why isn't this study cited in any future research? And he said, this is precisely what you're going to bring to the knowledge of everybody. I went, okay. And I went, oh, here am I again, a troublemaker. Oh, no, this doesn't sound good at all. And I said, okay, I just surrender. Keep on telling me what to do. So in 3 months, he collated the information of hundreds of studies and articles. He put it together very nicely for me. All I did was I was the stenographer. That was it. And he said, now you can read it. And I read it. And the more I read, the more horrified I was. I got a terrible tummy ache. And I went, oh my God, this is a scandal like you have no idea. This is political interference with science, with the well-being of the Great Barrier Reef, which is a World Heritage Site. And it implicates the corruption of all the agencies, absolutely every single one of them. And then there's a lot of violation of human rights. So I was told, go to this, there's a new office that has just been opened in Far North Queensland called the Environmental Defenders Office. They just opened. Please go to them and ask them if they could help you bring out the actual laws that these people are breaching through this and this and this. So indeed I went and I asked, and we ended up with about 33 pages worth of environmental laws that had been breached by the own Australian government agencies. Oh my God, this was just getting worse by the second. And then I said, what about the Aboriginal laws? Oh, another, I don't know, many pages of Aboriginal rights. Laws that had been violated and breached by the Australian government. By now, I gave the rest I gave a copy of what I had done to the EDO, and we sat down and they said, Liliana, this is huge. This is a scandal. If you publish this, this is horrendous. And I said, would you please back me up, please? I need the backup of some lawyers because could get very nasty. They said, oh my God, they just opened up our our center. They could shut it down straight out. So we need to think about it and talk to our lawyers about it. And I said, okay. So anyway, make a long story short, I published it. I made copies. Oh no, I took off. Wait a minute. Then the voice told me, go to the Aboriginal Council something. And so I went to the Aboriginal Council offices. The Cape York Aboriginal Council was called in Cairns. And asked to speak to Gerhard. I said, the who? Just ask. So when I got there, of course, I obeyed. By now, I really paid attention. So I went and spoke to Gerhard. And he said, and I said, what do I tell Gerhard? He said, tell him to please read this and that you require their assistance because they require your assistance. You need each other. So I gave it to Gerhard and I said, look at the 16 pages worth of Aboriginal rights that have been breached by the Australian government. Are you willing to help us so that I can put this out? It's environmental laws and Aboriginal rights that have been breached. And we require your assistance. He said, give me a few days. I need to speak to my brother. His brother was no other than Neil, the number one Aboriginal lawyer that had been working already for decades on recovering Aboriginal land. And so a few days later, I returned and he said, done deal, what do you need? And I said, can you please make many copies of this document and bind them for me? He said, okay, what else do you need? I said, a desk, a telephone, a fax, emails. He said, and a secretary while you're at it? And I said, yeah, I could use some help actually. And I got everything I needed. So I completed doing everything there. I gave them copies. And then I said, okay, I'm on my way up north. I need to speak to all communities. Community groups so that they know what is being done to them, to the future, to the waters, to the fisheries. And I need to speak to fishermen groups, to schools. I need to speak to everybody. And he said, I can help by calling on people to help you set these meetings up. And I said, divine, done. So off I went. So I campaigned for about 8 months. I ended up in Far North Queensland, up there in Cooktown, where there was my beautiful friends, Joe Winter and John Hill, whom I had worked with. They were managing the Aboriginal community and its assets at Ayers Rock in Central Australia, which is known as Uluru. And they were campaigning to get the land rights for Uluru, besides looking after the community and the community store, which was the store, was the bank, was the post office, was everything. Was Social Security. So, and they sold food and they sold artifacts and they sold tourist stuff. And the tourist buses would come and park there, disembark 80 sexagenarians or octogenarians at a time, invade the store and then leave. And then I had worked with them there for over 7 months, managing the shop. And so during that time, I was actually in the last few months where I said, I cannot do this full time, it's killing me. And I started training others to do so. And I said, I need water. I'm going crazy in the desert. I cannot live in the desert without water. I need water. I'm out of here. It's getting too hot also. So the Aboriginal elder women initiated me in Central Australia. They took me to the desert every day. I worked in the morning, in the afternoon. They would put me in a pickup truck and we'll go. And these Aboriginal elders would give me instruction, taught me about healing, literally healing. My first lessons on healing the energy body and the physical body came from the Aboriginal women who taught me. And the first laboratory rat we had as a customer was my husband. They asked him one day to come with us, and they spoke very little English, let me say this. They spoke to me telepathically. They gave me the instruction telepathically, and for some reason, I understood. And so they told me to tell Thierry to lie down on the ground. So he lied down in this beautiful red sand of the Central Australian desert, which is magnificent. And then they all got around him, and then they showed me. And then I realized that I had perfect inner sight. To me, it was like, normal, okay. And then they showed me his thyroid. Just before we left France, he had had a tumor in his thyroid. And he had had it removed, and he had a cut right here to prove it. And he had been receiving gold injections, and I don't know what kind of hormones to help balance his thyroid. And then they showed me, and with physical gestures, they said, that, if we don't fix it, he's gone. He's goners. He'll die. I said, okay, what do we do? They said, watch, learn, and help. I said, okay. So they started singing, because the Aboriginal people sing the song lines of Earth. This is what all these things they do always entail singing. And the sound is a very powerful mover. It dislodges blockages, energetic blockages, and physical blockages from the body. I know for a fact because I used ultrasound in the laboratory to shake the weeds and the stuff from my little prawns so I could identify them. All I had to do was put them in ultrasound and everything will fall off. So I knew that sound was an incredible cleanser of stuff that you didn't want there. So then they started showing me, and then they started, some of them, they were all around him, and they placed me next to one of the elders in this circle around him. Well, this elongated ellipse around him. And then they started showing me how to pull out of his body this long black stuff, gooey stuff, and send it to the light, sing to it. And we just kept on pulling from all over his body, all this stuff, all this black stuff. And then when they were done, they did the final song, and then dun, 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 and they all went very well. And then Thierry was out there. And then after a while, he came back to consciousness, because all this time he was unconscious, totally unconscious. And then he woke up, and I said, how do you feel? He said, very dizzy. What happened? And I said, you had a major surgery. Now I know what a surgery, an etheric surgery, and energy surgery is all about. So that's how they taught me. So anyway, coming back to the Aboriginal people and my campaign up north, I had worked with Joe and John right there in Uluru when I was receiving those initiations from the Aboriginal people, and they had helped get the land rights for Uluru, and then they moved to Cooktown. So they're the most loved white people by the Aboriginal people around Australia. They've worked for them for 50 years or something. So I knew they were in Cooktown, so I called them and I said, can you help me organize the blah, blah. So I got there, and Joe and John read my document and went, oh my God, why are you always creating trouble? And I said, yeah, that's me. And then she said, I'll help you edit it. It needs some fixing. I said, deal. So then we worked together, and she helped me edit it to better English. And then she organized with John a meeting with Aboriginal community and with white community members of Far North Queensland. And the word had already gone between Aboriginal communities, and they were divided about what I was doing. They called me the Mexican that came to create trouble. And some of them had actually pointed the bone at me. When they point the bone at you, the Aboriginal people, it means you're dead very swiftly. And so I said to Joe, can you please help save my life? Because they pointed the bone. We need to get all the Aboriginal people to delete the bone. We don't want no bone pointed at me. I'm trying to help. Hello. And so then they stopped I had my meeting and they stopped pointing the bone at me. Anyway, so after 8 months of campaigning and passing this, I sent this study to everywhere, to International Union for the Conservation of Nature somewhere, and to the WW Wildlife Fund for Nature. I sent it to the World Heritage Center in Geneva. I sent it to Greenpeace, to everybody all around the world and within Australia. Nothing. I went from agency to agency in Cairns and dropped a copy of my study. Nothing. Nobody wanted to talk to me. There was no feedback, nothing. It was like, no, this doesn't exist. Nothing to see here, move on. So after 8 months, I was just very frustrated and I said, enough. I was doing this for free. Nobody was paying me. Let us start by the beginning. Okay, I was receiving a pension from a single parent's pension, actually. Whole $10,000 a year from the Australian government. So I was making use of that money very handily to pay for food pretty much and petrol. And then I said, okay, after 8 months, I said, nah, I know when I'm beat and I have been beaten. So drop it. I've done my best. It didn't work. Voice, goodbye. So then I went off. The voice remained silent. So I went to say goodbye. I returned to Cairns from Cooktown and went to say goodbye to the Conservation Foundation in Cairns. And I got there, and this guy that I had talked to several times and given him a copy of our study, I said to him, okay, bye. I came to say bye, give you a hug. Thank you for supporting me. Said, oh, good. Are you going to Townsville? I said, And said, I am going through Townsville, but on my way to Byron Bay. Said, why are you going to Byron Bay? I said, because I'm done. Because I've lost 8 months of my life, a lot of energy. I was nearly killed. I've had enough. I'm out of here. And he said, but you can't. And I said, oh, yeah, I can. As a matter of fact, the car is packed. I'm on my way out. I just came to say goodbye, and goodbye. I'm off. Said, but Liliana, we all thought, everybody thought, all conservationists, aboriginals, whoever you want, all community groups, all the fishermen groups that you organized, that we are working with thanks to you, we all were convinced that you were doing all this work to put it forward at the symposium, the International Coral Reef Initiative symposium that is happening in Townsville in 10 days' time. I said, what? Said, we thought you had done this study to present it at that symposium. And I went, which symposium? Said, you don't know about the symposium? I said, yet. And he said, look at the ad. And then he shows me the ad. I went then. And I rolled my eyes and talked to my voice. And I said, hey, voice, you said nothing. And the voice went, because they've got a fabulous sense of humor. And I said, seriously? And he said, we thought you'll find out, beloved. I go, now what? He says, now you go back to get help. You go back to the Aboriginal Council and you're going to ask for help. I said, oh, am I? He said, yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to see if I can make it. But I've got enough money for petrol to get myself to. How am I going to pay for this? Look at this. $687. Every person that wants to get in has to pay the entrance fee. They do it on purpose so that broke environmentalists like us cannot go to these events. They cut you through the cost of just getting in. That's without counting, I would need to get there. I have to go back to Cooktown, drop my daughter, come back to Cairns, get a plane, go there or somehow, and then I need money for accommodation, I need money for transport over there, I need money for food. It's a 5 days, so basically it's a 6 nights, 6 day little trip that I have to do. How am I going to do that? He said, we're having the same issue. We're crowdfunding for us to be able to go there. And he said, let me know what you decide to do. Okay, and I said, no help. He said, we're hardly trying to get ourselves there. There's a team of 3 of us that are going. We have to be there. And I said, okay. So then I followed the voice and I got myself back to that Cape York Aboriginal Council office. I got there and I said, Gerhard, look what I just found out. And I brought a copy of the little thing that's announced the symposium. And I said, they just thought that I had been doing this for that symposium. I didn't even know that it was happening. And now I need help to get there. He said, excuse me? I said, yeah. The voice said, ask him for everything you need. And I said, well, basically, we need your help. He said, okay, how can we help? And I said, well, I have to drive my daughter back to Cooktown to stay with Joe and John, which he knew well. And I have to come back. And then I need to get myself to Townsville. But I'm not going to drive 1,000 kilometers or whatever long they are, 800 kilometers there and back. Could you please offer me the airfares? He looks at me, he said, Liliana, you've got a chicken. I said, you have no idea. You wait. I said, could you help us with the airfares? I said, look, you owe me. I am doing this for you as much as for my waters. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not winning anything. Nobody has paid me a cent, have they? I've been working for free for 8 months. I was going to give up. I'm willing to give it the last try for you, for your Aboriginal rights, for your Aboriginal people, and for the rest of the communities for a future, for fisheries to continue existing, for a coral reef to continue existing. So in fact, you owe me, really. So I'm just saying, I need your help. So he said, okay. And do you have anything else in mind? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. He said, really? To spill the beans. You might as well give it all to me now. And I said, okay. I need you to have your secretaries bound 36 new copies of this document that has been edited. You want them bound? I said, yeah, bound and plastified or whatever you call it so that they're protected at the top. Said, okay. I am making a list, my boss. What else would you like? And I'm going, okay. I can book me in booking.com. I can book myself a hotel for 6 nights. He said, a hotel for 6 nights. Hotel for 6 nights, he writes down. Anything else? And I said, well, the thing is, as you know, I live on a single parent's pension, and you could say that my outer self is broke. So I would require physical money, some cash, to pay for taxis to get to from the hotel back to the symposium conference center. And I require money, cash, to pay for food. He said, money for... He's writing and going, shaking his head. He was sort of smiling, but at the same time, he didn't look too happy. And I said, is there anything else? And I said, no, that'll do, thank you. He says, oh, really? That's all? He said, do you know what? When I tell Neil and the rest of the council that I'm giving you thousands of dollars to do this, do you know what's going to happen? And I said, I don't know, and I don't care. That's your problem. He said, my head would roll. And I said, no, your head won't roll. Come on. It's called payback, mate. It's called payback. You tell them. So, can I have all that? He said, I'll have to talk to Neil, and then I'll tell you. Tomorrow would be okay? I said, okay. So I came back to him and I said, hi, what happened? He said, okay, you can have everything you want. When do you want those papers by? I said, today? Tomorrow? I have to go and... What about my airfares? He said, booked. Here they are. Here are your airfares. And my hotel, they said, our secretary booked the hotel too. So here you go. And here's an envelope with some cash for you to to do what you have to do. I threw myself at him and gave him hugs and kisses because I'm so Latin. And he went, oh my God, you're awesome, you know. You're bloody crazy, but you're awesome. And we love you. And I said, and I love you more. So off I went to Townsville. And that's when all hell broke loose.